Hey, welcome everybody. We'll get started in a few minutes. We're just allowing some people to come into the webinar. I see it's filling up rather fast, so that's nice. So hang on and we'll start in a few minutes. Okay, welcome everybody to Stacy's third webinar with us this month. As you know, remote learning has been an important subject over the last couple of months, actually, with the event of the coronavirus and everything that's been going on around the world. So welcome, Stacy. Those of you who aren't familiar with Stacy, she's the Director of Innovation and Educational Technology at the Bullis School in Maryland. And she's an expert in the field of the flipped classroom. She's a math teacher as well. And she's just an amazing person. And take it away, Stacy. You're on.
Thank you for that intro. I'm excited today to be able to answer some questions, and this will really be a Q&A style. What do you want to see? And I will do my best to share my experiences. Just a quick little background. I have been flipping my classroom since 2010, and that's where my interest with the pen technology first came in. I'm a math teacher, and so I wanted to be able to make these nice screencasts for my students, and I really needed that ability to write and talk at the same time. And I am a Mac user, so when I learned about the Wacom tablet, that really changed the game for me personally as an educator, because I could be writing and talking, and it would just felt very natural and real and easy for me. And something that I have experienced as a teacher is the easier it is for me to create, the more that I do it. So I feel like I've gotten into a good workflow, and I'm excited to share that experience with you all. And then also just being able to get this to the next level, get some of this technology into the hands of my students, was where I kind of took things to the next level. But things as simple as being able to easily digitally mark up a document for students to give them feedback on their work. Such an important thing right now in our remote learning settings. How are kids getting feedback from us so they can learn from their mistakes? And then also just how we communicate with them through personalized videos or through kind of flipped classroom style videos that have been very, very effective for many teachers, throughout the years, but particularly now. I've been hearing from a lot of teachers who have said, just trying this flipped classroom thing because I need to do it with my remote learning settings so that I can kind of spend our Zoom or our synchronous discussions more interactively and allow kids to ask questions. So to offload some of that video ahead of time. It's exciting to see people exploring it a little bit more based on a need. So anyway, I want to jump into any questions that you have from how to create a screencast, how to, like my workflow, what would you like to know, giving feedback to students. I personally use an app called Cami. Would you like to talk more about that? Whatever questions you have, please leave them in your chat, and that will drive what I do first.
Yeah, and Stacy, we can all, everybody that's on the webinar today, just go to the Q&A and log in your questions there, because any questions that aren't answered today, they are saved, and we can have Stacy answer them, or we can answer them at a later date. So put them in the Q&A, and that way they're saved as well.
Yeah. And I will go ahead and I'm going to jump over to a screen share so that I can answer some of the questions and kind of show what I personally do. I see Jamie asks a question about using a Mac and Notability, and I do the same thing. So this will be great, and this will be a little bit conversational, so please go ahead and continue to add things into that Q&A. Let me do the screen share as I said I was just going to do. So here would be kind of my daily lessons normally. And Jamie, you're completely correct that the Mac app is much more limited than the iPad app, and I don't have any great answers for you there at all. I mean, I chose the color palette that, you know, like I have these, and then you can add some more custom colors in there, which I don't use a ton of. I pretty much use the ones that are in here. And I like that magenta and the teal, and I go between those two a lot. And then I highlight sometimes also, but that's exactly my workflow. Is I pull usually my PowerPoint into here or a PDF document that I want to ink up. So like we were doing this AP problem the other day, and I just pull it in as I'm reading. So something that I tend to do is I'm reading the problem with the students while we're doing it, or if I'm creating a video, I really try and like read it with them. I try and actually use my cursor. That's something that kids have told me is really helpful, is to like point as you go, and then kind of things that are important, make sure that you actually highlight it, and it helps them learn how to highlight the important pieces of information, and, you know, kind of similar to annotating work, to focus your eyes on what is important there. So that's my workflow. I don't know that I gave you many more options there, Jamie, but if you have any more questions, let me know. And then Brian asked, what is Cami? So I'm going to take you guys over there. And I'm also interested if anybody else has any ways that they personally give feedback to their students. I'd love to hear what you guys are using. I use something called Cami because we are a Google school, and my students are all turning in their work usually through Google Drive. And so this is a way to annotate on any Google Doc, on any PDF. Normally my students take pictures of their work and then they upload it. And then what I'm able to do is just open it, whether it's a PDF or if it's a JPEG, any file. And I'm using the free, I usually use a free version. Right now they have offered premium for everybody because of, you know, school closures, but there's always a drawing tool, and that's always for free. And that's usually what all I use. So when I'm in here, opened it from my Google Drive, which students had submitted, then I can use all the pen tools on here to give feedback, and I can just write. So adding a note here. And it's a really great writing experience. So that's one of the reasons that I've chosen this one. You know, if you've used some other annotation things, even if you're writing with something as pleasant a writing experience as a Wacom tablet, it gets very clunky, your writing gets very jaggedy. Then when I'm done, I can just go, I can save this file and I can share it with the student, and I can share it as a PDF, or I can share it, anybody with the link can annotate. And so my student, if they have a tablet, they could actually write back on it, ask me any questions in here. Right now, my students don't have the tablets at home, so I'm not able to kind of do that same feedback loop, but students can still add a comment and kind of type their question if they need anything clarified for them. So that is great. Is that a good overview of what Cami is? Would you like me to show anything else? I see, can it record audio as well? So that is a premium feature in Cami. So it allows you to, so again, I'm on this trial just because they're allowing everybody to sign up for a free trial right now, but normally it is something paid, and I honestly don't know the cost because I haven't subscribed to it before, but they do have voice commenting in there and also video commenting. So I can add even a video comment to this part right here, and I can just record to my students and then press a done key and it will add that little video in there. So that can be a really nice personalized touch, especially since we're remote right now. And again, here is just the voice comment right in there. Okay, oh, I see Jamie asked, how did I get those colors in my Notability? I'm going to go back to the Notability question and then see if there's anything else on Cami. But personally, how did I get that? I don't know if it's just an updated app, because I know they added in more colors just in the past year. They added it in. So I wonder if you're on the most recent version of this app. But when I basically go to this format bar right here on the side, then I have all the colors there. So I guess I would have to dig more if there is a preference option. I'm not sure why you're not seeing all of the colors. Yeah, I don't think there's that many things in there, but I would suggest looking if you're on the newest update, and mine is version 4.2.5. So hopefully that helps.
And then Dave has a nice question about how long did it take you to get comfortable with your Wacom tablet?
Yeah, so, okay, I personally have the Wacom One, which is a display tablet. So I can see what I'm writing on my screen. So it's a second display, and it's much nicer and much easier for me than the ones that are just like the opaque style slate, like the Intuos tablet. I was using the Intuos tablet to begin, and I actually use it a lot of times in the classroom because it's so portable and lightweight. And you know, now they have the one that's actually Bluetooth enabled, so you can carry it around without having to attach a wire. Now in my classroom, my students all have one, and the first month of class is a challenge. I'm just being totally honest. It's a challenge to get them not only like writing well, but also just used to it, because they're so used to a trackpad and they keep like not writing on the tablet. You know, it's supposed to be like you're writing, if you're writing on the bottom, then it's going to write on the bottom of the screen, but they keep trying to move their cursor up, kind of like a trackpad's happening. It takes a good month at the beginning of the year for them to get comfortable with it. But once we do, it's really not that bad for them. So there's a learning curve. I would say it's at least a month. For me, because I make these things so often, I do recommend investing in the display tablet, like the Wacom One, which would be the lowest price point of a display tablet. Again, like I can't emphasize enough that when you have technology that feels comfortable to you, you use it more often. So, you know, like if I have my Wacom One always sitting plugged in next to me, next to my laptop, I use it a ton. But, you know, if it's a hard thing to do and get out, then I don't even want to make a video. Right now, just because I have this workflow set up and it's so easy for me, you know, a kid the other day was asking me a question and I could have just typed a response and it would have been fine. It would have been just fine. But it was more pleasant for me to send that student back a 1-minute video showing them how to actually solve the problem they were asking. And that student was then able to help themselves better, because a video is much easier to follow than me typing some equations that are hard. So like personally, I've just been using Flipgrid a lot because it's a super easy app. And I can show that process as well, but I'm able to write with the pen. And that to me has made all the difference versus just typing a response. It's not as intuitive for the student. And right now, I think when it's so difficult, we are not seeing our kids, right? So how are they processing that information? How are they getting from like the response that you're giving them to being able to dig into that and like unfold it and process and learn from it? That's a really hard task. And I think that videos are some of the best ways that we can share with students. I think that's why they go to YouTube to solve their own problems all the time, because they watch somebody else do it and they're able to replicate it enough times until they become masters of it. So yeah, back to Dave. Yes, keep practicing. It does get easier, but you know, if a display tablet is something that's possible, I would recommend that. Cami seems really good to use. Is the equation editor good to use? I will be honest, I have not used the equation editor. I always handwrite. I just obviously really like handwriting. So as much typing as I don't have to do, I usually stay away from it. So I don't know. When you write out equations, do you want to pause to color coordinate your variables to make them easier to follow, or does that ruin the flow of teaching? Is it different for live versus prepared videos? That is a really, really good question, and one that I've thought about a lot, and I've changed my style over the years too. I think that something that I try and be mindful of is like, I want it to be as professional in a way, in terms of like, I want students to watch it in a video versus being in a live classroom. There's going to be more pauses, and in a video, I feel like there should be less pauses. That being said, I still think it's important that students have time to write. So I've experimented with a lot of time for students to write, and then I made a series of videos where I cut all of that wait time and just told students to pause as they wrote. And the feedback from students was, it was too fast. Like, I need you to give me an in-between. And so that's what I've done now, is I do edit out certain things. So for example, as I'm changing colors, when I make my video, I make my videos right here. I use Notability. So I might have a slide that looks kind of like this. And what I do is I personally use Camtasia to record and edit my videos. And that is something that you have to pay for. But again, because I want to be able to edit my videos, I find it really important to invest in something that is not free and gives me more robust editing features. When I record, I choose, it gives you the ability to choose the selection that you want to be recording. So the first thing I do is I choose just this region that I want the recording. So all the things that are happening on the side, like when I'm changing my pen color, that's not going to be picked up. None of that stuff is going to show in my actual video, so my students can just concentrate on what I'm doing here. As I go to change my colors, like if that takes time, I do edit it after the fact, and I cut some of those pieces where I was just changing the color of my pen. But if it is like me writing an equation that I want students to be writing as I'm writing, I take the full time for that. If I then write like a little paragraph of like a reminder, tips, whatever that I want students to kind of keep in their head, but not necessarily need to write on their piece of paper, just like a little summary screen at the end, and I'm just like writing maybe 3 sentences or something, I speed that part up because students aren't necessarily writing that on their piece of paper. So my mindset is I want to create it in a way that students can follow along with me and do it with me so that they can be writing while I'm talking. And they're obviously going to pause and start when they need to, but I don't want them to have to constantly pause the video so that they can take notes. I want it to feel comfortable, almost like, you know, if we're doing some of these like workout videos and we're following along, there's 2 styles. There's one that's like you do it with the person and it's in real time, and I tend to prefer that when they like give me the time intervals so that I can follow along, versus just like giving me this whole bunch of exercises to do and then I have to do it on my own time. I find that harder. I like to just follow along with somebody. All right. Do you have any advice, insight on distance learning for elementary school students? Any apps, websites that are favored among you and your colleagues? That's a great question. I think that elementary is probably one of the most difficult things right now. I teach at a K-12 school, and I get to support the teachers there, K-12, and I think one of the hardest things has been that the little kids almost need a parent in front of them to be able to sit in front of the screen. So it's very challenging. And so in some ways, some of this asynchronous stuff has been even, you know, like it's been helpful. One of the favorite things that our younger kids use is Flipgrid. So why don't I just take a moment to show that? So Flipgrid is a way to get everybody to respond on a grid. So you just ask a question, you ask a prompt, and then students can all respond on the grid. And I'm going to show you an example from lower school. Here. This is just one example, but this is what it's going to look like. So when students enter, it's going to look like this. There'll be a prompt at the top, and I don't have one here. It just says Bullis Lower School examples, but normally I would ask my question right there. And then students just press this green button. They would log in with their Google account or their Microsoft account if you have school email accounts, and then they can just talk to the screen. Now, if a student has an iPad, and our lower school students actually have iPads, so they're able to do it this way. If they have a Wacom tablet that they can plug into a laptop, they can do it that way. For my high school students, like there really is no way unless I give them a Wacom tablet to be able to do this stuff, because they can't just write with their finger like our lower school students can do with an iPad. So again, like when we're talking about getting the right technology into the hands of students, that can be a really important piece. But anyway, I'm gonna show you how this works. So I can just talk to the camera like this, I could record, but there's also a whiteboard here. And so when I turn to whiteboard and I press the record button, then I can change the color of my pen, and then I can just start drawing. Like this. And then when I'm done, I can pause if I need to pause. I can add in a picture clip if I need to add in a picture clip. I can go to next. Then I can change the color of my pen. And then I can just start drawing. And all of that would come as a video. And then if I went to the next screen, I'm not going to post this because it's a mess, but I would post that, and then it would also show up on this grid. And then all students can see what their classmates have contributed. I, as a teacher, can see everything. I can even give feedback to students right within here. But let me show you some examples from the lower school. Oh, this is not the math example. I'll get to that next, but here's just an example of them talking.
Tulane is very selfish. He's like, I'm so better than you. And he thinks like highly of himself. He thinks he's like way better than everyone. He's like, I'm not gonna pay attention to you. You have such dirty hands.
So this was just them expressing their feelings of different characters in a book that they were reading. So we use this all the time for students to be able to interact with one another, for them to be able to still see each other and talk to one another, and for them to be able to talk things out with their teachers when they aren't all on at once. I think that it can be very difficult right now for all students to feel comfortable contributing to a conversation when literally we are kicking one another off when we're trying to talk at the same time over a video chat. I think we've all experienced that. We try and talk at the same time as somebody else, and it's like now we either can't hear anybody, or somebody else their mic is louder than ours is, and our voice is completely almost muted. And so this has been a really nice way to allow everybody to talk, and also for everybody to see how their classmates are thinking. So it's not only that I can respond, but I can then also click on any responses that I see in this grid, like this.
This is the next problem. I hope you like it. Okay, next problem is 18 plus 19. This is what I did. I added the two 10s together, which equaled 20. Then I took 1 from the 8 to the 9, which made the 9 into a 10, and then made the 8.
So we're trying to do a lot of this, even from our youngest kids right now, helping them really verbalize their math thinking process. And so this is one way that we've accomplished that through Flipgrid. So it can be as simple as them writing on a piece of paper. Again, if they have some type of a tablet to write on, then they can just do what I showed you before. And then what's more is that students can then watch their classmates' video and then press this reply button and create their own video response back and say, I was thinking about the problem the same as you, or I was thinking about it completely differently, and here is what I was thinking. So it gives them that ability to interact with one another. The question that Brian asked, how long can the videos be? They can be up to 10 minutes. And you can customize that. So it's a maximum of 10 minutes. But if you want, you know, like you need to grade all these things and you cannot have 10 minutes from 30 kids in your class and you really need to limit it to 2 minutes, you can change that setting here. And this is the maximum amount of time that you're giving students to respond to the specific question. As the educator, as you're making videos, you also have that same time constraint. If you are creating a video here. And something that's new, so the whiteboarding is absolutely awesome, but say that you're making your videos and you love using Notability like I showed you before, there is the ability to create a quick screen recording. So you can just screen record right within this Flipgrid and you don't need to like add on or learn some other app. This would not give you the editing ability that I was talking about in using Camtasia, but when I want to create a video where I want to just be able to give students a quick reply with a video, they can see my face, they can see me handwriting, they can see all of that. This is what I'm using right now because it's so quick, so easy. Okay. When you write out equations, do you want to pause? Oh, we already got to that question. When using Camtasia, do you upload to YouTube? Okay, I agree. I'm having some problems uploading directly to YouTube just recently. I don't know what's up. I've been using Camtasia for years and I am having that same problem. So what I'm doing right now is I am creating a local file. So you can just create, I don't actually have Camtasia open, but you can create a local file and as an MP4 and then I'm uploading that to YouTube. But absolutely, I post all of my videos on YouTube. And the reason that I do that is for multiple things. Number one, my videos can reach an audience way beyond just my students, which is amazing. And I'm so happy to be able to share my lessons through YouTube. And number two is that for my students, I assign the videos through another platform called Edpuzzle because I can then embed questions and learning checks into my videos. If anybody's interested in more information about Edpuzzle, please put that in the Q&A and I will know to talk about that. So basically right now what I've been doing is share and then do local file that will create an MP4 on my desktop and then I upload that to YouTube, but I always upload to YouTube. Do you have any thoughts about synchronous learning versus asynchronous and what apps are best for each learning situation? I definitely have some feelings on it, which I'll share. And these are just my feelings. I personally feel like, especially right now, the time where it's synchronous is so precious to me. I really just want to be able to have a class discussion with students whenever we're meeting. We're not meeting as often, we don't see each other as often. And when we do, I want to be able to interact with kids. So I really try as much as possible to offload anything that is very one-directional, where I need to teach students something new, to video for them to watch, either ahead of time or asynchronously. So it depends on what your school is like. Right now, my students are still coming to class on a daily basis. So I'm giving them some time within the class period to do an asynchronous activity. And that is like a video of them watching me do stuff. And then when we're doing things as a class, I try as much as possible to make that conversational. So I'm not saying that I'm not solving problems. I am solving problems with them during that synchronous learning time, but I give them pauses to help me out so that we're solving it together. So it's not just me writing. Another thing is I use Pear Deck a ton. and Pear Deck is an interactive presentation tool so that students can write and they can type. So it's kind of like our Q&A right now, but it's all built in to a Google Slides presentation. So instead of like me having a separate Q&A window, I can pull up all student responses on the screen, and I can pull up a sample lesson so I can show you what that looks like. But in real time, I can see students responding, I can see them typing, I can see them drawing, writing, and so my feeling is during the synchronous times, make it as interactive as possible. Asynchronous can be more about what I need to get across to students. All right, let's say you are doing a class without derivations. What layout is easiest for students to follow? Do you want to have one infinitely long page, or do you need to break it up into slides or smaller sheets? Personally, I do the slides. I find it easier to have just one page of things to focus the kids on one thing at a time, and then I move on to the next slide. So my personal preference is always to have slides. But I think that depends. I think it's personal preference. Another person in my school does flipped classroom things all the time and does things through a PDF. I just personally don't like the scrolling as much. I find it harder to focus on. So I do feel that's a little bit of personal preference. I like Edpuzzle. Yes to Edpuzzle. Okay, so I'm going to show Edpuzzle. It seems like you want to see some more of it. Do you ever use Desmos? Yes, I definitely use Desmos for a lot of graphing things. I don't get to handwrite on Desmos, and that is something that I really like doing. So Desmos is easier to build some of the activity builders. If you've done some of that, if you're a math teacher, I still tend to create in Pear Deck because I can draw anywhere on the slide. And again, I really like handwriting and drawing. So I'm going to show the Edpuzzle. I'm also going to go over to the Q&A because I see, I'm in the chat because I see some stuff coming in there also. All right, so we got some of those apps coming in. Doug, were there any questions in this chat that I haven't answered yet? And I'm gonna pull up the Edpuzzle in the meantime.
Not really. I mean, I haven't peeked at the chat. I've been so enthralled listening to you. So yeah. Even though my math days are long over, yeah. No, but I'll look at chat right now like you are, and we'll see if other people have some questions.
All right. So I'm going to show you what I was saying about the Pear Deck, and also I'm going to introduce you to Edpuzzle if you haven't used it before. So basically, you take a video, any video from YouTube, so it can be something that you've created, or it could be, say, a Khan Academy video that you found that you really like. I can go over to Edpuzzle and then pull that in. So here is my content. I already have a bunch of videos in here, but I can also add new content, and I can create a new video in here. So there's some videos that were already in Edpuzzle that you can pull from and you can edit in. You can also pull videos from YouTube, or again, you can create your own content, which is typically what I do. I just make my own videos.
So Gwenda KB has a question. She says, can a student re-record to desired video before they upload their video to the class?
I think that's in reference to Flipgrid, and absolutely they can preview like I was previewing. You can hit the X, delete, and then when you're finalized, you get to preview the video first, and then you can submit it. So yes, absolutely, they have that ability. Okay, so I'm gonna go to one of the videos that I have in here, a math video. And I'm gonna click on it right now. And basically you're able to add in these questions. So I can add question spots. So that gives students the ability to pause and answer a question. It pauses the whole video until they answer. I can ask open-ended questions, and I can ask multiple choice questions. And then when students have responded, then I can go over and I can see how much of the video students have watched. I want to show you that screen right now, but student names are attached to that. And so for their privacy, I'm not going to pull up that screen right now. But basically, I get a view of like who has watched the video, if they've watched the entire video. Again, how many questions they got correct versus incorrect. Any of the short answer style videos obviously are not going to any of the short answer questions are obviously not going to auto grade. I can grade it. I can give them a check mark or an X mark right in Edpuzzle, but any of the ones that were multiple choice, students will get instant feedback on. And I find that really, really helpful, not just for me, but also for students, so that they know, am I understanding what I just watched? Because many times they think they understood it, but in actuality, they're not able to answer that next question, and they know that they need to review. So anyway, that's kind of, I always distribute all my videos in Edpuzzle so that students can have that information. And also it equips me with all this information before I even step into the classroom the next day, because I know, all right, we all need to go over question 5 from that video. I pull it up on the board and make sure that I go over it before class starts. If everybody got question 1 right, I'm not going over that again. But anything that the whole class needs, we do it on the board at the beginning of class. And maybe, you know, one kid in my class missed all the questions. I know that I need to go sit with that student and give them a little bit of extra time and attention that day. So yeah, that's a game changer for me. Okay, so how do I draw on a slide? Let me show you Pear Deck, and then I will show you how I draw on a slide, because it's it's not made for drawing on slides, but I do draw on slides, and I'll show you my little hack for it. So basically, I can see in Pear Deck, let me see if this is one where I was just writing or my whole class was writing. So I can go back at any time, and I can see how, oh, this one was just them writing to me, so that's not a good one. I can see all the sessions that I've done. Pear Deck is an add-on for your Google Slides that allows you to embed questions into any Google Slides. If you're a Microsoft user, you can do it in PowerPoint also. I use Google Slides as that option. And so this one I think was just me writing. But in real time, I can see through this Educator Dashboard, I can see how everybody's writing, I can see how everybody's drawing, and what I can do is I can show the responses. Maybe this was a session, here we go. So I can show all the responses of the class. So here was me writing, and then here was another student writing. And I can pull this up on the board so that I can show not just my answers, but also how everybody is contributing to our conversation and how everybody is answering the questions. I can show and hide responses. In real time though, I can see how students are writing. And like if they're quick to respond, if they're really pausing, they're having trouble starting, I know that I can like maybe nudge them or help them out. I'm gonna show you how I write on my slide right now, since that question was asked. So basically I start in my Google Slides. So let me just start a new presentation. And then you need to get this add-on for Pear Deck. Now I will tell you this, I have a premium license of Pear Deck, and you need the premium license to be able to do some of these drawing things. And right now Pear Deck is available for all for free by signing up on their website because of the school closures, but normally I do have a paid license. So then if you ask your question, and then maybe let's draw on this slide, what I can do is add this as a drawing type question. And so once I do that, it's gonna add interactivity to this question. So now this slide is a drawing question. This slide is just the normal question. I can't do anything. And let me add one more slide where I'm going to do drag your dot to A, B, C, And I'm going to do now a draggable question type. Gonna add just one dot and let's make it blue. At this point, I'm ready to start my lesson. So when I press start lesson, I can choose if I want this to be an asynchronous student-paced activity or instructor-paced. I'm gonna do instructor-paced for right now, so then I'm in control of moving students through these slides. Now, as soon as this loads, students are going to join by going to joinpd.com and then typing in this code. Now, when I'm gonna copy this code right here, I'm copying it. Now you can see that I can't actually draw, even though this is a drawing type question. My students are able to draw, but I'm not. So how I get around that is I open a new tab and I use that link that I had just given students. Again, how did I get that link? You just can always click here to get the join code. So students can go to joinpd.com and manually type this code, or you can click this button, give students a link. Now I'm pretending to be a student over here. And when I go over here, now I get all the drawing tools that students have. So I just sign in as a student. So as students are signed in, I'm also signed in as a teacher so that I can draw. And then when I go back to my teacher tab here, I can now show the responses, and I would be able to, let me move this over. I can show the responses, and now I can see that and any other responses that were coming in. I do just want to show you how this updates in real time, because that is one of the amazing things is I can have all my students in the class typing something or handwriting something, and this is how real time it is. You see how that just happens in real time? So there's no submit key that they need to press. There's nothing that they need to do on their end. I can see all that come in real time. And if I have a whole class, I can just have this little grid layout view, and I would be able to see all the little thumbnails of students as they're working. And then what I tend to do is then pull the class together again. So I tell students, okay, come back to my screen share in the classroom. Obviously it's on the board in the classroom. And then instead of just projecting my response, I usually have that in case we need to talk about it, but I usually scroll through all the student responses so that I can help them talk about the right answers, the incorrect answers. They can analyze the ones that were correct, the ones that were incorrect, why they were correct. We can make corrections to any of the ones that were incorrect. And it's not just all about me. Again, it's a way to, during these synchronous class sessions, to pull the attention back to students and what they are saying versus just what I have to contribute. All right. So what do you do if a student hasn't watched your video before class? That's a great question. I think a lot of this depends on your class and your relationship with your students. So at the beginning of the year, everybody needs to watch the videos to be able to participate in class. If you haven't watched a video, then some kids will watch it at the beginning of class, but the real issue becomes this, and this is how, again, I have been teaching for a number of years now, AP Calculus, with highly motivated students who really trust me, and we build that trust together. What happens is that students aren't able to participate in class very well if they haven't watched a video ahead of time. And the way our class is structured, they want to participate in class, and they don't want to feel lost in class, and they don't want to waste valuable class time watching a video that they could have watched for homework. And so that's worked for my class really well. I have not had very much issue at all with students not watching videos, just because it's kind of the way that our class culture has shaken out. Now, there are certain students every year who can skim through a video quite quickly and get away with knowing as much as they need from it. And my attitude is, if the kid is continuing to do their part and continuing to do well, hey, if they don't watch every minute of my video, they didn't need every minute of my video. They got what they needed and they're doing super well, so it doesn't bug me a ton. Now, if the student isn't doing well, then now we have to have a real conversation about it, and I have to help them get into a healthier routine. So whether that means that I need to check in with them after school if they haven't watched the video, you know, we're able to do that. But for me, most of my students are watching it. I don't have any problem. Now, back a number of years ago when I was teaching Algebra 1, homework didn't really work very well for my students at all. It never did. And that was fine. I built classroom time into watching videos. And you might ask, why did I give classroom time for watching a video when I was just there? It was because I could set up kind of a station rotation model where some students were watching the video and they were totally engaged in that activity, and I could work with a very small group of students then, and the rest of my class was engaged in something else, and I didn't need to like monitor them or help them with that activity. They were watching the video, and then I could do kind of smaller group one-on-ones and stuff like that. And that really worked super well for that set of students that I had then. But they were not watching videos for homework. They were watching them in the classroom. And again, it was just a way for me to have more individualized time with students. So I think that, you know, those are just some strategies, and it depends on your class. Do you have any suggestions for improving my on-screen writing with the Intuos? No, I don't really, except to continue to practice it. Oh, a question about Equasio. Is there speech recognition? Yes, there is. So I will show you that. I'm going to pull that up on another, just sign in here. Why do you prefer Flipgrid? While I'm pulling that up, I'm going to go to the next question. Why do you prefer Flipgrid over screencastify? I don't necessarily. Actually, screencastify is a little bit better of a full experience. I'm going to hop out of this for a second. Flipgrid's just easier for me normally because my students are already using Flipgrid all the time. So honestly, that's just about it. If you're comfortable with screencastify, it's a fantastic option. And plus you get some more editing ability and all that. Is there a way to make Equasio images? Okay, so we have a couple questions about Equasio, so I'm gonna hop over to that now. Let me get back into my screen share. All right, here we go. So I am going to go ahead and open up Equasio. So what is Equasio? It is a Google Chrome extension that allows you to type and write math in any Google Doc and Google Slides. And it's a pretty robust equation editor. So you can just search for that, Google search it, and it is a Chrome extension. So you have to install that. It's a one-time install. Once you install it, you will, just like I have, get this little thing in your toolbar that you can pull up. And so what I love is I love the handwriting recognition here. So you pull this up, and then I can just use, you know, my Wacom tablet, and I can write any equation. Just like that, and it recognizes my handwriting super well. I can then insert my math. It looks like a picture file, but it's actually not a picture. It is always editable. Just so that I have my Equasio toolbar opened, I can go ahead and always edit that. The question was about speech recognition. So there is that speech recognition. Let me move this over, and I can just talk. X squared plus 5x plus 10 equals 2x over 5x plus 3. So that worked pretty well, but it missed out on a couple things, and I can go back and I can edit that in my equation editor. I can edit it here, and I can kind of make it into a fraction like I wanted to. And edit it until I'm happy. But yes, the voice recognition works pretty well in Equatio. Now, the question about how do you make it bigger and smaller? So I'm in Google Slides right now, but it's the same in Google Docs. And I highly recommend going to your options and going into the math options and choosing either extra large or large. The thing is that the larger that this image is, the better resolution it will be. So if it is small or even regular, I find the image quality is really not that good. So I use extra large, and a lot of times that is too large and bigger than I want, but I can resize it down. But there's a huge difference between that and if I choose small, for example, and then I go back to my equation and I insert that, it's gonna be a big difference between those two things. That insert, I'm not sure. Here we go. So now if I make this, you see how different the resolution is? So that's why I say always have extra large on, and you can always make it smaller versus having small and then the resolution is a completely different, it's completely different. So that's over here in your options. Okay.
And then you have a question from Tom Durfee.
All right. Would you share some of your early mistakes when you adopted your approach? Was there a time where you over-engineered a class, or where the certain kinds of learners that have difficulty following you at first? What have you learned since then? Yes, that is a great question. So, all right. My first year flipping my AP Calculus class was actually really a great experience for me and my students. I didn't think it was going to be such a great experience. I told them, all right, we're going to flip this first lesson. This is the goals. This is why I want to do it. My students had been used to really tough math classes where they didn't have enough time to get all their questions answered in the classroom, where they were highly stressed doing really difficult math problems at home. So when I started flipping the classroom, they were just so happy to have class time to work with one another. And it was a great experience. So then I went into my second year of flipping my AP Calculus classroom. I again explained it. It was a positive experience. My third year, I decided to do it in my Honors Algebra 2 class. I said, I've been doing it 2 years in AP Calculus. I'm going to do the same thing in my Honors Algebra 2 class. So this was at a time when flipped classroom wasn't a big thing. Parents did not know what the flipped classroom meant at all. I had 9th and 10th graders in my Honors Algebra 2 class. Some of them had never had a hard math class before, ever. And I didn't really explain the philosophy behind why I was flipping my classroom. I didn't explain to parents that the learning was happening in the classroom. I didn't explain to them why we were doing it like this. I didn't explain to them that students would be watching a video at home, but that was really just like some background knowledge, and we would really be digging into the most important part of the lesson in the classroom together, and that we would be doing it all collaboratively, and it wasn't just about students learning everything on their own now through a video. And that was my biggest mistake that I made, because parents were confused in the first month of school, which made students confused, especially with 9th and 10th graders, where they're still relying on their parents for, you know, a lot of things, and they're still griping with their parents, and they're still listening to their parents in a way where, you know, it was very important that parents understood. And so what I did was I spent like all of October explaining to parents, like doing a better job explaining to them what the goals were and how kids could be supported, and how I'm supporting the kids. And it took a lot of work to kind of build that trust, but I was able to build that trust within a month, and then the rest of the school year was fantastic. But to avoid that mistake, now I always make a video that I send home with parents at the beginning of the school year explaining, well, now more parents know what a flipped classroom is, but still I want them to understand my why I'm doing it, what the flipped classroom means to me, because that is critical in a parent being able to support their kid and for students to really understand what this interaction looks like and what my expectations of them are. And so I created it as a video, and I have that, so I explain it at back to school night also, but not everybody comes to back to school night, or if they do, it's a really short amount of time. So that's been my biggest thing that I would recommend, is that you explain why you're doing what you're doing at the beginning of the school year. If you're going to do something like a flip model or something that parents weren't as comfortable with, they didn't learn that way, so how do they support their kids now? Making sure that they understand the feedback loop, and again, that the most important learning is going to happen when I'm there to support them, and that this is only a better way for me to be able to interact with your child and to get to know their needs on a more personalized, individualized level. So that to me is like the most important thing that I've learned over the years.
And Stacey, before you sign off today, why don't you tell people a little bit about your book, not to plug it, but Tech with Heart is a great book, and some of the listeners might want to read it, right?
Thank you. Yeah, so I wrote a book that's called Tech with Heart, and it is all about empowering students' voice and hearing from even our quietest students in our classroom. How do we embrace technology to allow all their voices to be heard? And when I say their voices, sometimes it is written, sometimes it is typed, sometimes it is them chiming in to the conversation in a class discussion, but sometimes it's them doing that through a Flipgrid. And how can we kind of use technology to support our students, to create deeper compassion in the classroom, to get to know our students on a more personal level, to really deepen those relationships. And I just share in that book my journey, my experiences, what I have found works. And so I start with the flipped classroom model. I talk about my evolution. When I wrote the book, it was my 7-year evolution. And I really talk about what I did the first year, my second year, my third year. What I've talked about today is like my 10-year evolution of this. And so to expect to do all of it tomorrow is not realistic. What do we choose each year, and how do we feel really confident in doing that and doing that well? And I hope that through reading that book, it can help you kind of prioritize what your next goal might be. So again, I start with my flipped classroom, and then how I've used other tech tools to hear from all my students. And then really it talks about my experience as a purely online teacher, which I know can be very helpful to some people right now. It's not the same teaching an online course, a purely online course, to remote learning, but I hope that reading my experiences as an online teacher and how I interacted with my students can help you, as you do need to teach in a remote learning setting, because it's a big challenge. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's great, Stacey. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for doing another webinar and letting all the people out there who've been listening in on what you've been doing. And I hope everybody learned something today. I know I did.
Thank you. And thank you all for your excellent questions. They were wonderful. I could keep going. They were great. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.